Hi, this is Nancy with On Point TV, and we will be now doing our very last in the summer series. So all summer long we've done, this is our 9th video, and we have been going through the techniques used in this book. So this is called Tranquil Stars. This will be our last one. Keep in mind, we meant for last week's to be the last one, but it kind of went long, so we're going on. Here's the thing, it's summer, right? And in the summer in Michigan, you want to be outside. So I kind of thought we'd be done before my birthday, but we're not. So we came back to show you the LeMoyne Star with set-in seams. So am I good? Okay. So this is the block I'm going to teach you to make today. So this is one that has a set-in seam. Now, not only do I like this better because there's one less seam, but the thing I like about it best is what you need for tools is your rotary cutter, mat, and ruler. You already have those in your studio. No special tools required for this technique. And this is the technique that I do all the time when I'm doing this. So I'll use it on LeMoyne Stars, on Lone Stars, and on tumbling blocks. So we do have videos for tumbling blocks and a whole series on Lone Stars. So if you want to go in there, one easy way to get to those series is to go to our website, onpoint-tv.com, and go to the news tab. From there, you'll be able to see the topics finder. When you click on the topic you're looking for, so Lone Star, it'll take you to the entire playlist for all of the videos we did for Lone Star, and then the same with all of the other ones too. All right, so to get started, I want to, for one last time, show you the quilt. So remember, this is the quilt that my sister made, and I want you to notice that it's made in more country style red, green, and cream. I had some gals looking at it going, well, I like your colors. And I told them my colors are the same. So let me show you what I mean by that. Coming around. All right. So this is the colors that I made it. I want you to notice that this is just a different shade of red. This is a different shade of green. And this is the different shades of cream. So when you're thinking about a quilt like this, yeah, they might look a little bit country, but just think about it as red, green, and cream, and then you add an accent. And in this case, I added the teal in the accent, all right? So I need my portable quilt hanger to move a little bit to his right and to come down a little bit. This is the block that we're working on today. We're going to be making the LeMoyne Star, but I want you to know that there are half square triangles and flying geeses around that block, but those are already ones that we've taught. So I think number 1 in the series was the half square triangles, and number 2 might have even been the flying geese. So you know how to make that. All right, portable quilt hanger, thank you very much for your assistance. So at the end of this video, Teresa is going to make a link down at the bottom that not only will take you to our website, so if you want to purchase the book is, we've got the hard copy book and we've got the download book, so you save $10 if you do the download. But she's also going to link down there a link to the entire playlist. So if you weren't with us every Wednesday night for the last 9 weeks, then you'd be able to get everything that we taught you last time, all right? So we are ready to start the LeMoyne Star the way that I do it. Now, I've been doing it a long time, and then I had taken a class with Sharon Craig. Now, this is the book I showed you last time, The Art of Classic Quilt Making by Sharon Craig and Harriet Hargrave. Still my #1 reference book. And I mentioned last time I didn't know how long it had been. Oh, and Sharon signed it for me. So mine is signed. So mine is super special. All right. This was published in, sorry, I didn't look this up earlier, 2000. So it is 19 years old. Got to tell you, I put in Art of Classic Quilt Making book on the internet, and I found some on Amazon and Etsy and some individuals that were selling it. So you can find this book. In this book, Sharon wrote the section on making LeMoyne Stars. Now, I do some things differently than hers, but for the most part, we're really the same. The instructions in the book are for a 6-inch finished LeMoyne Star, which is exactly what we need for this pattern. Oops, this is the one that I made. Oh, I guess I should mention that. Last week, if you didn't see it on part A of this, this is the LeMoyne Star that I made with Deb Tucker's rapid fire ruler, and you'll see that there is a seam going right here. Okay, in the one that I make today, there will be no seam. So there's two ways to make it. The LeMoyne Star with the rapid fire means that you don't have to do a set and seam. The way that I do it, you do have to do a set and seam. With Deb's ruler, you need to buy the ruler. With my technique, you already have the ruler in your studio. All right, so you've got to make the decision. So this is where I run into a little bit of a quandary. The LeMoyne Star is not based on a really simple math equation. You know, a 9-patch block is going to have 3 squares going across the top. If you want it to be 9 inches, then they're going to be 3 inches, 3 inches, 3 inches, and so you cut those 3.5 inches. LeMoyne Star isn't like that. So I, honest to Pete, could not find online anything that told me that if you want to make an 8-inch LeMoyne Star, cut your diamonds this size, cut your setting squares this size. I saw some that have math, actually. I even pulled out, this is my old Fons and Porter Quilters Need to Know card. It's not available anymore. I usually have it hanging up behind me because it's got all the equations in it. And it's got a little thing in here for the math, but honestly, I really couldn't make it work out right. In the Art of Classic Quilt Making book, Sharon has some drafting information there and some math in there too. And if I'd probably read all the way through it, I might be able to figure it out. But now I'm going to tell you the sad story. Every LeMoyne Star I have ever made, other than the 6-inch one, I just cut strips, make the diamonds, and go, oh, my LeMoyne Star is 9.25 inches, and I build a quilt around that 9.25 inches. Or I add coping strips to it, so it's the size that I want it to be for the quilt. So I do not have any simple math for you today. So if you want to make a 9-inch LeMoyne Star, start cutting some diamonds and figure out what size they get, because I really just don't have any magic for you. I wish I did, but I don't, and I'm sorry. Okay, so we're going to start, and I'm going to work on 2 of them while we're working. The one I'm going to work on is what I'm going to use for the quilt. So this is the one I made. I'm going to take you through the process of making that one. I've got some pieces already set. And then I also have some pieces already set for a larger one that I'm doing in solid fabrics, in the hopes that you'll really be able to see what I'm doing when I get to the sewing machine. So to start, for the 6-inch LeMoyne Star, you need to cut strips that are 1 3/4 inches wide. So I already cut strips 1 3/4 inches. Now I'm going to cut them into diamonds. And this is just maybe a little bit of a tricky thing. Some people really have a hard time when it comes time to cut with the angles on their ruler, which is why I love this ruler so much. This is my Omnigrid. This is the 4x14. I really think that after my 12.5-inch square, this is my favorite Omnigrid size. It's so portable. It goes in my my carrying totes really easily. It's small enough that I can do all these other things. This one here is the ruler of choice. And one thing I love, love, love about it, let me see if I can find a piece of white paper. There, can you see those angles at the bottom? I love that Omnigrid has angles that when you're doing a 45, this is your 45, and I did highlight it with some glow tapes because that's the one I'll use today. But then also going in the other direction for 45. Here's the 60, here's the 30. I love that the angles are all right there on the ruler. This is my go-to ruler for so many things, so much so that when I used my one last week and I'm like, okay, this one's looking kind of grungy. It is looking kind of grungy. I went out and bought a brand new one so that you guys could see how pretty it looks when it's brand new. All right, now back down to the diamonds. Okay, so I've got these strips cut 1 3/4 inches. So you can see that I've cut them 1 3/4 inches. Here is my 45-degree angle. I'm going to place my 45-degree angle on the straight cut edge and cut. Now I'm going to spin my fabric around, and if my strip is 1 3/4 inches, then my diamond is 1 3/4 inches. So I'm lining it up. So from the cut edge, I've got 1 3/4 inches, and here it rests on my 45-degree angle. And I can make the cut.
We have a question. Where do you
Yes.
buy your 60mm blades, and what brand do you recommend?
And so,
From Diane.
hi Diane. I use the Olfa rotary cutter. This is my ergonomic rotary cutter. This is my favorite one. This or my 45. I cannot rave about the Olfa ergonomic rotary cutters more. I buy my 60. Okay, truth. I work at a company that sells them, so I get them at wholesale. So there you go. That's where I buy my 60mm blades. Okay, going back to work now. Okay, so now I'm going to do a power cutting of the diamonds. You know how much I love to power cut. Power cutting is going to be more accurate and faster. So if I needed to cut 1 3/4 inches, if I add another 1 3/4 inches to it, I have a 3.5 inch. So I'm lining it up 3.5 inches on the vertical, cutting the diagonal. Now I'm going to slide it over to 1 3/4 inches, and then I have my diamonds. So this would be enough diamonds for an entire LeMoyne Star that quickly. All right. So we are now going to go to the sewing machine because I really have everything else already cut. In the case, I guess I should tell you what size I cut them. In the case of the 6-inch LeMoyne Star that is used in the Tranquil Stars, your little squares, the setting squares, are going to be cut 2 1/4 inches. So you're going to need 4 of these cut 2 1/4 inches. And I gotta look, okay, the large square that cuts the setting triangles. So let me lay this down so you can imagine what it looked like. Do, 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 do. Oops. There. So it would have been cut a 3 1/4 inch square after it's cut. And I do love to spray. I mean, I spray size everything, but this one in particular is always going to get spray sized. And then I cut it on the diagonal this way, pick up my ruler, turn it this way, and cut on the diagonal in the opposite direction. And that will get me my 4 setting triangles for my LeMoyne Star. So I think we're ready to go to the sewing machine. So I do have half of it already made to go a little bit faster. So I need 2 of these and 2 of these. 1 of these packs. And then I also am going to work on the larger one so that you can really see how I'm doing it. Again, I have half of it made, so it'll go a little bit faster. I've got and my triangles for that. I've got my half. I'm going to take my super cool ruler. I'm going to take a marking pen so that you can see how I do some marking on it. That might help you when you're first starting with your setting seams. I don't mark them anymore, but you're going to see what I mean. So let's go on over to the sewing machine. All right. So we're going to start at the ironing board this time because I want to show you some marks that I will make. Oh, this is my other favorite rotary cutter. This is my 28mm ergonomic. They don't make it anymore. They stopped making it. I couldn't believe it when they discontinued it because I love this little cutter for trimming and for doing paper piecing, all that kind of stuff. So sorry, if you can find one, grab it now, but this would be another favorite. Any of the ergonomics, buy them. Okay, all right, so back to this. So we are going to first do some marks on our background fabrics. So these are the background fabrics. These are the little squares. And these are the couple of setting triangles that we need. All right. We're going to make what is going to be called your turning mark. So on the inside corner of the setting square, I'm going to make, and I am using my friction pen. This is that in the right place? This is a heat erasable pen. So when I'm done and I iron it, the mark will go away. You just want to use something that's nice that you can really see, and I can see that, so it works really good for me. Then I'm going to turn and I'm going to cross that mark with another mark. That will be my setting square turn. So I did say that I don't actually mark them anymore. I used to mark them all the time, and I almost always tell my class if I'm teaching to mark it because it will make you get more comfortable with it, but in the end you don't have to if you don't want to. This is my setting triangle. I'm going to now mark on So this is what I would call the long edge of the triangle. These are the shorter edges. So where this shorter edge comes in, I'm going to mark that same kind of a mark. This is going to be my turning mark. All right, there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the big one because I want you to really see how I turn. Because if there's anything people are afraid of when they're doing set-in seams, it's the turn. And I'm hoping that after today, you won't be as scared to do the turn on your set-in seam. So let me mark just a couple more so we'll have some to play with. So just crisscrossing a mark that is a 1/4 of an inch in, or a scant 1/4 of an inch if you will. It really won't make that big of a difference whether or not it's a true or a scant on this particular technique part. All right, so I've got my squares and triangles cut. Now I'm going to take my diamonds to the sewing machine. Okay, I think I left my diamonds for the big one up at the cutting table, or I might not even have them cut. Are they there? No, Teresa's finding the other one. So, okay, I'm going to run over there to the table real quick. Athena, please amuse our guests. Athena,
Da 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 da.
If only there were a fat cat coming down the stairs at this very second.
Well,
there's a fat cat. That is RC. He is named for, Bill was away on a golf tournament when I went to the Humane Society and rescued him. And so he is Ryder Cup is his name. We call him RC. Okay, no, don't show that. That's not nice. Everybody thinks he's fat. I disagree. I think he's beautiful. All right, so come on back. There, I got to bring Athena back because she just thinks it's too funny. Okay, let me move this out of the way so Athena can come on in. And we're going to sew our diamonds together first. As always, I do have my guidelines for quilting set up here. I'm going to work with a leader, so I'm going to start sewing the leader first, get that started. And then I'm going to put 2 diamonds together. I am going to start sewing approximately 1/4 of an inch in. So this is where the seam would be. I'm going to start sewing approximately 1/4 of an inch. It does not have to be exact, and I'll explain why later. So I'm going to lift my needle and lift my presser foot, move this in, and start sewing right about there. So it's kind of sort of 1/4 of an inch. Be very cautious when you get to the point that you keep that point next to your seam guide. There is a tendency for people to kind of float away from it. And always sew, so I sewed that one with the green on top. I'm going to sew this one with the green on top. Be consistent, otherwise you will not get that 2-color look that the LeMoyne Star has. Again, I'm just going to move it in so it's approximately 1/4 of an inch in. Match up my points and be sure that I do, because what happens is sometimes people let that point float out. Just don't let that happen, okay? There we go. As I started that one, I'm thinking, boy, I hope I sewed with the green on top on that other half. We'll find out soon enough. I kind of did that other half last week when I thought that we were going to do them both in the same week, but it kind of went a little bit long and our tummies started to growl. Okay, now I'm working on the larger one, and this one's going to be done in solid fabrics, so I really hope you'll be able to really see what it is that I'm doing when I'm doing my turns. So my second one, again, I'm going to do the same color fabric, and this is not as noticeable as a color change, but I do have a darker gold on top. So to the end, sorry, hands in front of you. I'm going to put on my leader. All right, now I'm going to put my needle back down so I can turn. All right, back to the yarning board. All right, so I need to move the cutting mat out of the way. We shouldn't need that for a while. I don't have a little pair, oh, I'm sorry. I don't have, yes I do. A little pair of snips here. With my technique that I do, and I'm not sure if I'm the only one that does this, I do know if you're looking for another technique for set-in seams, Guyleen Fitzgerald has a really good one. She calls it butterfly seam. So Guyleen Fitzgerald, wonderful teacher. She's super duper funny. If you're in a guild and you've not had Guyleen Fitzgerald come yet, you guys will just crack up. She was hilarious. And her company is called Colorful Stitches, I believe. But she does a set-in seam that's called butterfly seam. That's not really even set in, but the same idea. All right. So as always, I'm going to press my seam flat. With my technique, I press the seams open. All of them are pressed open in the star. So there's 1, 2. So be careful when you are pressing the seam open that you do not stretch the diamonds at all, because keep in mind 2 of the edges of this diamond are a bias edge, which means they can stretch. So here's my smaller ones. There. And 1 more to go. There it is. Silence. We should have music for this. Okay. All right. There. Now I'm ready to go back to my sewing machine, but I want you to notice that opening. So that's that opening that I started the 1/4 of an inch in. It makes an opening. So when we position it now, we're going to be able to take that opening. So how's our shot, Athena?
Good.
Can you see that good?
Yep.
All right. This is my set in square. I'm always going to do those first. This is how it sets in. I always sew on the right hand side first. So let me tip it this way so it's actually in your direction, like this. I always sew with the right hand diamond first. So I'll lay it down like this and then take this piece and flip it up. Flip it up so that the point matches the square, and then fold this down. Well, it's going to be a little bit off a little bit. All right. I thought my squares were cut right. Well, we're going to see. It's going a little bit higher than I wanted it to go. Okay, so I should be able to see my turning point. Do you see that turning point right there? Right there? So when this is open, I can see the turning point. That tells me that's where I'm going to turn. So now I'm going to put my neat pin in. All right, something is wrong and I'm not sure why. This should not be that small. So excuse me while I double test my sizes here. That's the correct size. Is that the right? Yeah, my guys are all, I'm not sure why. Did I cut my squares? I'm sorry. Please don't go away yet. I cut my squares the right size, so I'm not sure. Maybe all right, this needs to go a little bit farther down. Okay, we're gonna make it work, okay? All right, so I'm gonna start with that there, and I need to get all of them pinned before I go back. So again, start with it. Here's your Y seam. That's why they call it a Y seam, because that makes a Y. Start with the right hand side diamond. So take and flip that right hand side diamond over. Open that up until you can see that square, that mark that we made that told us that was our 1/4 inch turning point. And then I'll do the same thing. Actually, with the other big ones, I'm not even going to pin them because that's more how I do it, whereas I don't pin them. Okay. All right, time to go back to our sewing machine. Okay. Come on in. This time I'm going to work with my needle in the down position. So my machine automatically stops in the down position and then lifts the presser foot for me, which is really convenient, which is just one of the many reasons that I love my FAF icon. Okay, now I'm going to sew with my 1/4 inch. I am going to sew, I want to get my pointer, until I see that my needle is off the green and into the cream alone. One more stitch. So I don't know if you can see under there, but you can see that the needle is just in the cream. Maybe angle it this way a little bit more so I can see. Can you see that a little bit? Oh, I wish the needle was brighter so you could really see the needle. But we'll be fine, okay? So now I'm going to take out my pin and I'm going to spin my block until the next edge of the square is coming right down along the edge of my guidelines for quilting. Do you see how that is positioned? Now that's where I'm going to sew. I'm going to hold that square in place and move this around. Look at how I just take this and go spin it around. So it's just going to zoom, 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 zoom. Come back to the end. And why is my square too small? You guys, I feel like I'm failing you. Please believe me. I don't know if I cut these diamonds too big when I just cut them. I didn't think I did, but I really feel like I need to go back and fix this. All right, we're gonna do it with the bigger one because those are the right size. What did I do? Okay, so here's my mark. I fold that down until I can see, yeah, this one's cut right. The other ones are cut wrong. You know what? Whenever you think it's cut wrong, it probably is. So stop now. So look at how I have the point going to the end of the square. And when I fold this back, I can see that mark that we marked. After we're done here, I will take us, uh-oh, Athena just lost something for a second. I'll take you back up and we'll double check our measurements on the small one for the 6-inch. I'm gonna go until my needle goes into the rust fabric alone, one more stitch. And now I lift the presser foot. Now when I spin it, I'm spinning it, so now this edge of the square is pointing right toward me. This is where I'm going to sew. Hold that down and then just spin this around until that diamond lines up. And like, look at when the math is right, look at that point landed right there on the square. My first stitch should be, boom, right on my diamond. Let's sew to the end, and we're going to do that again with the big star. Okay. So I'm going to open, there's my little marking. Going to lay down the right-hand diamond first till it lines up with the square. Open this up. I should be able to see my little crosshairs there. There's my little crosshairs. Going to start. I'm going to go until the needle is off the yellow fabric, just into the rust fabric all by itself. Lift the presser foot, spin it so the next seam I'm going to sew is straight toward me. Now spin this around, and that diamond usually flops open until that diamond lines up. So now I'm at the end of my square again. My first stitch should be, boom, I actually missed one there. I could see that it took an extra stitch first. Right there onto the yellow and sewing till the end. Take my leader and to the ironing board. I'm so disturbed that the real one isn't working. I'm going to figure out why. Because you see that it worked here, so I cut something wrong when I cut the other half of it. Thinking, all right, I didn't want to do too many. Okay, so this is how it looks right now. When I do my LeMoyne Stars, I like to press the seam toward the star for the setting squares, toward the star. So to do that, I start with it here, make sure my square is perfectly flat, and then I can just slide my iron that way, and then slide my iron this way, and then I know that I've got my seam folded completely over. There we go. That's a pretty good center, isn't it? Okay. Next one, again, I lay it flat, press it flat first, then slide the iron one way, and then slide it the other way so that it completely presses that seam open. Or over, not open. So only the center seams are pressed open. So when we look at it from the back side, this is what it should look like. So I have 2 of them. Now I'm ready to sew those 2 together. Just like before, I am going to start with that approximate 1/4 of an inch. You could mark it if you chose to, but marking the center is really important because we want everything to match. So what I do is I open it up till I can see the 2 fabrics, and I lay the seam. Do you see how now my seam is laid right one on top of another? Because it's a open seam, I can't just butt them together. You need to actually physically look at it and make sure that they're lined up right together. All right, we look really good right here. So back to the sewing machine. All right. Again, I'm going to now work with my needle in the up position because I need to move in a bit of a 1/4 inch and then sew. I'm going to be cautious here. I want to be sure my seams stay open. So I'm going to sew, and I'm absolutely going to leave that needle in because I do not want those seams to move. There, and then I can finish on a leader. And cut this off. Back to the ironing board we go. Yes, here's the advantage of only doing one of these is that it's going to take half the time. So I guess maybe that's what God intended in the first place, that I only do one of them. All right, so you can see here that I started about a 1/4 inch in on that seam. Now I'm going to set the seam and then open it up and press that seam open. Cautious again not to stretch things as you go. And when I bring it to the front side, my hope is that that V is lined up just about like that. I mean, I don't know that I've ever done one even better than that before. That's just about perfect. But before we can sew our two halves together, so I have my other half done, before we can do that, we first have to put a set-in seam up here at the top. So the set-in seam is going to be done in the same way as the squares. So here is my triangle that's going to go in for my set-in seam. This was the one that was cut from the bigger square. I'm going to start sewing on the right-hand side first. So I'm going to flip this up, fold this back so that I can see that little square, or if you're not marking your squares, there it is. If you're not marking your squares, you're going to eye a 1/4 inch there. I'm going to put a pin there. And then the top of it just lines up like that so that you see a smidge of the little bit of the point peeks up over the top. Okay, back to the sewing machine. Wouldn't it be great if we had a place where I could just press right here? That would be awesome. All right, back to working with my needle in the up position. I'm going to sew this seam. I'm going to pull this, keep this piece pulled back so that I can see my turning point. Until one more stitch will get me right off there, right off the yellow into just the rust. Take my needle out just like before. Spin the diamond until the seam that you're going to sew underneath is now going straight toward you. Hold that diamond as you spin the star around until it matches up with the seam. So there it's matched up with the seam. My next stitch should be right on my yellow. Boom, right on the yellow where I needed it to be. And move on all the way off. I've lost, oh, there's a leader. Gonna go on here with the leader. Although really I don't need to now that I think of it because we're gonna do another 1/4 inch seam. Okay. So let's go to our ironing board. Okay. I want it to slide off. Okay. So now I have two pieces done. So now let's press this. I like to, when you're pressing the squares, they very easily go in. When you're doing the triangle here at the top, it's much easier to get it to press toward the triangle. So like I have it here, there's a lot less bulk in this seam, so I do press those toward the triangle. So from the back side this time, press this and spin it. Going to kind of give that bottom triangle a little bit of a tug as I move it so I know my seam is open, and then this just kind of folds down right in the center. All right, There. So that's how it looks pressed. Now I'm going to put the two together. And you'll notice, I'm sure that you've noticed that the seam, the square is a little bit big. That's okay. I'm going to show you how to trim these off straight. I just wish that there was a simple chart to tell you what size to cut everything. There might be somewhere. I just couldn't find it. Let me cut these because I just make stars and then put them in a quilt, however I want them. And if you're ever doing any instructions for making a lone star that's in a pattern, the sizes will be there for you. All right. So the most important thing here is to get this center intersection and this center intersection to match up. So when we take this and flip it over, I'm going to line it up visually first. Now I'm going to take my pin and poke it into the back side of that intersection, flip this up, and now see where I'm taking my pin? Right into that intersection. And then keep them together. You can kind of line your guys up. Now keep that pin straight up and down with that. As you go for another pin, with the second pin, I like to take it under all that bulk seam and secure it from there. So it's secured all the way to the back here, coming out here, and then this is the pin, that guy sticking out there looked funny, that I'm going to pull out. So I feel fairly confident that that is going to now match up. Now when I'm doing my seam, I'm not going to shoot for right on top of that intersection. I'm going to shoot for right here, just a smidge off of it. And that's what will make it so that when you press the seam, you'll still be able to have start points. So not right on the intersection, just a smidge. You know, that's a quilting tool. That's a quilting measurement, a smidge right there, okay? We're going to start sewing these the 1/4 of an inch in, like we've done all of the other diamonds. So when we start sewing on this diamond, we're going to come in a 1/4 of an inch, and we're going to end a 1/4 of an inch. So move my needle up. Gonna lift my presser foot and start sewing about a 1/4 of an inch in, and that about a 1/4 of an inch just seems to work perfect for me. Okay, now I'm shooting, remember, for that intersection, but just a smidge to the right. I do want to be cautious that sorry for my hand in front of you, that my seams stay where I've already pressed them. And I'm going to shoot for that intersection just to the right of that intersection. Then line this guy up. And go until it's about a 1/4 of an inch from the edge. Right about there looks good. Lift, move him out, and then go on to my leader. Back to there, back to the ironing board. See, we keep going back and back. Now keep in mind that when you're doing this on a quilt, I don't think you're going to be making one LeMoyne Star. So you can understand how you could be doing chain piecing for these. So now when I take my pin out, you can see that intersection right there is the intersection, and I tried to come in just a little bit to the side of it. Sometimes I go a little much, sometimes I go a little short, so you could take it out, but boy do I hate taking seams out, especially when there's bias edges involved. Now I'm going to press this seam open. So get in here. I'm getting the feeling maybe I went a little bit too far to the right. When Athena's recording like this and the camera's there, I can't really get my eyes in to really see where I'm hitting. So, yeah, a little bit, but not enough that I would ever take it out, gotta tell you. So here is my center point. You can see here that this is what I was saying. This is just floated a little bit. I also want to point out that if I were really doing it with this color fabric, I would not have used black thread, because I can see the black thread. Right through that seam, I can see the black thread. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but if I were doing this in real life, I would have done this with a gold color thread, a thread to match my seam. That's what you want to do whenever you're doing seams that you're going to press open. So now we're ready to add our 2 triangles to the edges. So back to the sewing machine. So I did not mark these ones. So I'm going to show you how I really do it. I take and I imagine where my 1/4 of an inch is, which is, oops, I'm sorry. I just did that backwards. I'm going to start on the right-hand diamond, so I need to start with the light-colored diamond on top in this particular case. Going to fold that down, and I just move it over here till it looks like, oh yeah, that's about 1/4 of an inch in. So that's why you want to mark them until you're comfortable with imagining it or guessing where that is. It is totally a personal preference. Marking it is not going to kill anybody. It's not going to take too long, so you can just mark them. Now I'm going to lift my presser foot, spin it around, hold my bottom piece in place as I spin the star. He's going to go around and around until he lines up with the triangle below. I want to hold this. I'm going to kind of pull it back there a little bit, keeping my seam open, because I can see that my first stitch is not going to be on my gold. So if I hold the bottom and pull it back, now I think the first stitch will be on the gold. Goes down onto the gold. Now I'm going to position the rest of it. And then when you're doing something that's large like a LeMoyne Star, a lot of it is you got to, start it out, and then once it's holding, then you can do it, complete your seam. All right. Now I'm going to do the other one. There it is. So this is the last one in our LeMoyne Star. Here's my piece. I'm going to start sewing on the right-hand side first, so let's flip that over. Fold this down. Position it to about 1/4 of an inch from the corner. Line up the rest of the edge. And sew. There we go. Going to sew until I am sewing off the yellow and just into the rust. It's right there. Ooh, right there. All right. Lift your foot, spin your block till the next seam on the triangle is facing forward. So right here on the triangle. Don't pull that because that is a bias edge of that triangle, so be cautious on that. Now I want to position it so that my first stitch is going to be onto the gold fabric. Boom. Now I can position the rest of this seam. And that's my last one, so I'm going to cut my thread. Whoops, at least I think I'm going to cut my thread. There I am. Sorry, did I just put my hand in front of you again? That's so rude.
You did it
All
a couple
right.
times.
Oh, man. Okay, back to the ironing board. All right, so we are going to press this again toward the star. So I like to press it from the back side. Press this, oops, I'm sorry, I went the wrong way. Press this one toward the center. I like to do this because it just creates less bulk. So when it's time that you're sewing the star into another block, you're just not going to have that much bulk. If you went the other way, it would not hurt it. You'd be fine. Okay. One more going this way. Again, pressing toward the triangle. And toward the triangle. Then I want to always, always, always give this a nice pressing with some spray sizing. So I've got the Mary Ellen's, some spray size. I won't do too much, but I do need to do this before I trim it. I'm not going to ever trim anything before I spray size it. Which, one thing that I love about these wool mats that I'm pressing on is all the spray sizing that I do. And you can see I do a lot of spray sizing. I am not a skimper on the spray sizing. I want to get him out. But when you're pressing on these wool mats, it kind of makes it dry faster, which is really, really nice. I do have the steam off. Well, okay, I just don't have any water in my iron. Let's go with that. But do you see how fast it dries? And it's something about the wool, because if I was just doing this on a regular ironing board, I wouldn't be pressed this far so fast, or dried out, I guess. All right, a little bit more. Please be patient. I am a patient presser. I always, always take the time to be sure that everything is pressed properly and completely dry, which is one reason I have a TV in my studio, so that I can be watching something like Stranger Things while I'm making quilts. All right, so now it's completely pressed. Now I want to show you the trimming. And I think we're going to go up to the cutting board to do that. So let's go on up to the cutting board. And we're almost done. I do want to read you the exact measurements that you were going to have to cut the little guy, because I think I used a square that was too small. All right, when it comes time to square up your star point, all right, I just noticed that our lights are flickering, so I'm hoping you're not seeing that. Bill replaced one of the fluorescent lights, but it seems to be flickering a little bit. Okay, what you are not going to do is use a square ruler to square up your star points. If you try to do it with a square ruler, chances are you're going to end up cutting off some of your points. So I never, ever, ever square up a block that has points with a square ruler. Truth is, it is the size that it is going to be, so I'm not really worried whether or not it's too big or too small. I will ease it into the quilt. But what I'm going to do is on these points, I'm going to line up each point. So this point is 1/4 inch in, this point is 1/4 inch in, and I'm going to cut. Is this block going to come out perfectly square? Probably not. Am I worried about it? Definitely not. When the quilt is put into the quilt with his other friend blocks, it's not going to matter if he's perfectly square. So here again, point 1/4 inch, point 1/4 inch. Spin it, 2 more sides, 1/4 and 1/4. When I'm done, just for kicks and giggles, we'll see if he even is square. One more. I love using stars like this as just settings into quilts, which is why I don't usually matter exactly what size it turned out. Now he looks pretty square. Let's line him up on the mat and see how he is. Yeah, he's pretty good, and I didn't even worry about it. So this square, this star is 9 1/4, so it would finish out 8 3/4 inches. When I tried to use the math, nothing was coming out right, so I'm not really even sure. But I cut this diamond 8 1/2 inches. The strip, I'm sorry, I cut this 8. I wanted to do an 8 inch. I cut the diamond strips. That's what I was meaning to say. 1, 2 3/8 inches. Boy, I don't have any math in my head today. I cut the strips 2 3/8 inches, and my block has finished out 9 1/4 inches, which means it will finish in a quilt 8 3/4 inches. If you are doing the Tranquil Stars and you want to do the LeMoyne Star the way that I just did it, this is the math. And like I said, Gina and I are going to put up a download that you'll be able to download for free on our website, so that you'll be able to have something for making the 6 1/2 inch LeMoyne Star the way I do, because in the book itself, the instructions are for the rapid fire ruler. Okay, so I want you to be able to do it whichever way you want to do it. The measurements, if you're making the 6 1/2 for this, you're going to cut your strips 1 3/4 inches. You're going to cut your squares. How about I turn it this way? You're going to cut your strip for your diamond points 1 3/4 inches. You're going to cut your squares 2 1/4 inches. And you're going to cut your large square 3 3/4 inches. I know there's some math whizzes out there that are thinking that I'm ridiculous right now for not knowing the math of an 8-point star, but I graduated high school. I'm not going to tell you how well I did not do in algebra, okay? So that is the end of our Tranquil Stars summer series. The book is available online on Point-TV. Also online is available the Learning to Quilt book. In the Learning to Quilt book, there is no hard math. Everything in the Learning to Quilt is simple math. But this is the quilt that the Learning to Quilt actually makes. So it's ups, down, up, 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 up. There we go. That's the quilt that it makes. So this is also available on the website. And of course, my pincushion. So this is Nancy's fabulous pincushion. The thing is like, up, Nancy, up. I hope you have enjoyed this series. We won't be doing any more summer lives. We will do lives, but honest to Pete, I don't know when. So be sure that when you subscribe to the channel, that you also click the notifications. There's a little bell. Click that notifications, because then when we do go live, if you like watching live, you'll know that we're live and you can watch it. Otherwise, you know that everything will be posted on the YouTube channel later anyways. Our next project is to finish up the Quilt As You Go quilted tiles. And there's some over there, but they're underneath a pile of stuff, so I can't get it. But if you go to the YouTube channel and look for the quilted tiles, you'll see the Celtic style designs that we did, all the processes through making those bias bars and stuff. Well, the blocks that I made, we're going to do them quilt as you go, block by block. So if you are interested in doing any quilt as you go, block by block type projects, you might want to be sure that you've hit those notification buttons, because that is one that will not be live. That will be a scheduled showing. So probably we usually air those on Thursdays, because that one's going to need lots and lots of editing, which means while I'm taking a break from doing lives, Athena will be at home doing the editing. Go Athena! Thank you very much. I really appreciate you watching. I hope you liked this. Please give us a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, you can always put the comment below, or you can write me at my email address, which is easy to remember, quiltingwithnancy@gmail.com. Have a great rest of the summer.